This is Chelsea Fagan. She's the queen of the financial diet. I've been a fan of Chelsea for a really long time. I've already kind of talked to my Discord about this a little bit, but I want to talk to you about it because I think it's important. It's not the longest video in the world. It's like 30 minutes. And I want to watch it with you on 1.2 like normal. And I just want to disclaimer say that I am a girly who grew up conservative and I left conservatism pretty early in my life, but I didn't leave capitalism behind. As you know, I was very much in the capitalist bubble for most of my 20s and then deconstructed capitalism into my 30s. And now I'm very anti-capitalist. Okay. So I want to preface this video with, I am not saying Chelsea has to change. I'm saying Chelsea has a branding issue that continues to be a problem that is displayed not only in this video, but her pinned comment and her reaction to people who are upset with her for sharing she bought a second house located in France. One is in New York, one's in France. And also at the same time talks about how she doesn't have money and then also talks about how much she makes. And it's very confusing because I watch a lot of the finance channels. I watch a lot of them. I do not care that these capitalists are talking about how to make millions of dollars. That's what capitalists do. What's frustrating is when I assume anti-capitalist, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I've misunderstood Chelsea's perspective, but I thought she was an anti-capitalist. Because if not, maybe I'm just confused. She always says she's a leftist. She always says she's left, but maybe I'm just misunderstanding. Maybe this is the issue between liberals calling themselves leftists and leftists starting at anti-capitalism. I don't know where her leftism starts, but I'll just say this video was confusing and it does feel tone deaf, and her content has for like a year felt very weird, like very confusing from an anti-capitalist perspective. So let's talk about it and let's have this conversation because I think we can learn a lot. But I just want to say, I don't mean any disrespect towards Chelsea. If she wants to rebrand herself as a huge capitalist, then love it. I don't love it, but I mean, I can at least know what I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? When I watch Ramith, who's a liberal but a capitalist, I know what I'm dealing with. If I watch a Ramsey show, at least I know what I'm dealing with. With Chelsea, I just don't understand why you're branding yourself this way and then getting confused when your viewers are like, girl, people can't pay for groceries. And you're talking about how you don't even make that much money when she pulled in $250,000 this year. To be clear, when she said that, let me read you her main comment and then we'll get into it. She says, I know this video would cause some conversation, so to avoid hurting my own feelings and spending all afternoon going back and forth individually, let me answer some common questions here. Yes, I'm extremely privileged, but but there it is. See? What is this? Yes, I'm extremely privileged, but pause. My annual income does not come from TFD. This is the channel. I'm paid a very low relative salary for what I do, $108,000 annually as a CEO, majority owner, and primary face of the company. She's a liberal. This is why Chelsea's content has been so weird. She's a liberal because only a liberal could have written this sentence. No dignified leftist would talk about a low salary of $108,000. P.S. That's just from this channel. She made $250,000 this year, as she said in this video, from her other income avenues. Oh, and by the way, that's just her salary. Her husband also works full time. So they're a double income, no kids. Okay, so $108,000 annually. Okay, I am currently the fourth highest paid employee out of 7. I was the lowest paid for nearly 2 years while we recovered financially post-COVID, and even did not take a salary for months. For many of those months, I also do not partake in our monthly profit sharing, which the rest of the team does. When you support our channel or our company or use links, the vast majority of the money does not go into my pocket. She says, I am lucky enough to be a high earning, dual income, no kid household. This allows us to live dramatically a different life than we otherwise would. And by the way, Chelsea is ADHD and neurodivergent, but she really doesn't engage a lot in that conversation. And I do think that's a lot of what's playing a role here because ADHD people are just as socially awkward as autistic people. It's just in a different way, because I do think that's playing a role in this conversation where Chelsea doesn't engage. I think Chelsea's also she says she grew up in scarcity mindset. She grew up without money. She's terrified of not having money. But that dilemma is that I think she hasn't worked through her own stuff. So it shows up in the content, which is fine. I'm just saying this is why she's getting backlash. And this is why people like me are confused by her content, because I want to root for her. But then I'm like, what are you doing? What are you talking? Why would you even use the words, yes, I'm privileged, but, and also $108,000 is low? Yeah, for a CEO in a capitalistic business. She's saying compared to capitalism, I'm making low money. Habibi, according to the global world, you're making good fucking money. Like, that's what I'm saying is like tone deaf in this situation. And this video is to celebrate her buying a second home. A second home. Okay? Okay. She said, I'm lucky enough to be a higher earner, dual income. Okay, without my husband's income on top of my own and no childcare costs, we would not be able to make these significant financial moves. She has to understand that like the high earner part is playing a big role here, right? Because a lot of people are dual income, no kids, and don't even collectively make 100,000, right? And she would probably say, oh, well, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go get a second job, maybe. She's starting to sound like it in this comment though. Check this out. She says, I have also used my own financial privilege to directly support the company. As I've discussed quite a bit on this channel, my husband and I loaned several $100,000s to keep payroll going when we would otherwise have gone out of business and no one would have lent us. We are now financially healthy again and have plenty of lending options. But when we did not, we stepped in and don't regret doing that. Okay, so you were rich enough to give your company money. Yeah, that's what people do. That happened to my parents' business throughout the years. I don't think my parents would ever identify as people who don't make a lot of money, even though my dad only made $100,000 most of my life and raised 10 kids off of it. Made $100K and raised 10 kids off of it. I don't think my dad would consider that a low salary because it's still $100K. Even when the business wasn't doing well and they had to give loan, you know what I mean? It's still $100K, right? Okay. Let's see. Lastly, I believe that choosing what we do with our money, if we are lucky enough to earn it, is more important than even the act of earning it. We are in a very high tax bracket, living and operating our business in New York, NYC, and I'm glad to pay it. But what is left over, putting a substantial amount of our money in this home to operate as a nonprofit art residency the majority of the year, is something very meaningful to us. That also happens to give us a home in the summer when we were otherwise renting. So you'll watch the video with me, but to be clear, her second home in France, which cost $1 million USD, just under, is going to be a nonprofit art residency that is also their second home, which also made people go, isn't this just what capitalists do? Isn't this literally what capitalists do? They buy more property and then they call it a nonprofit and then they get the tax benefits of being a nonprofit. So you bought a second house and made it into a business so you could offset the cost. Like, what does that mean? Like, this is what I'm saying. Isn't this the capitalist playbook? I'm so confused. Okay. So then, but it sounds nice, right? Like support the arts, which we'll see in this video. She's like, I think this should come back. Only rich people in the past supported the arts. That's the point. You can't be rich. And then it's confusing. You'll see the video. Okay. She said, I'm also not, probably not relatable at 37 because I set out to completely change my financial life. And I did through hard work and changing my habits. Very Dave Ramsey of you, honestly, but also primarily through luck. Hey, I get it, right? It would be dishonest of me to pretend that I'm the same person I was at 27 or in the same place. This is why you consistently see voices other than my own on the channel because I can't represent everyone and wouldn't try to. I can only be honest about my life and my values. Thank you for watching. Okay, so we'll watch her, then we'll go to the comments, and then you can tell me why this didn't land for people.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this very special video here on The Financial Diet, where we are going to talk about this, the French country home that my husband and I purchased this year, which is, for those who do not know my lore, probably seems extremely random. For those who do, perhaps seems a little less so, but is nevertheless an extremely major financial decision, both in terms of the actual purchasing of it and in terms of what we plan to do with this house. And as someone who believes in financial transparency above all, I really like to kind of break down all of my own financial milestones. And I also like to demystify things. A lot of times we see people doing stuff that looks really cool on social media. And the question is, how do they afford that? Now, I'll be honest, in a lot of cases, people are just not disclosing for a huge variety of reasons. I'm looking at you. Nepo babies, New York City is certainly full of them, but also because a lot of people don't like talking about the nitty gritty of money or even logistics. And I know that for a lot of people, eventually doing something like owning a home in another country or even in this country is something that they would really like to have and know more about how it actually gets done. So I want to, both for practical reasons, but also for all of the nosy motherfuckers in the comment section, of which I am absolutely one. I love being nosy about money. I really wanted to break this down on the channel, but I also wanted to break it down because the home is not really just a home for us. It's kind of my big life project going forward with my husband that will exist very much in parallel with the work that we do here at The Financial Diet, but is where I really want to be moving and putting my money for a variety of reasons that we'll talk about. But before I get into all of the numbers, what we're doing with the house, all of that, I just want to really highlight that for those who don't know the channel, I started it about 10 years years ago because I was in a truly catastrophically bad relationship with money. I grew up in a lot of financial instability. I don't have a college degree. I used to have tons of credit card debt, ruined credit. I'd been arrested because apparently when you don't pay your moving violations for a long enough period of time, they suspend your license. And if you keep driving on it, they will in fact arrest you. I was in a really, really bad financial place and had to do a lot of things that I really did not want to do at that time, and had an extremely avoidant relationship to money, and just really felt as if I would never have a financial future, that I would never be in a financially secure enough place to, rent my own apartment, let alone to one day own 2 properties. So I really do want to highlight that this entire channel and this business that we have here at TFD has kind of unintentionally been a little bit of a long-term documentary on changing your relationship with money. But I also want it to be about what we do once we have that money. If you are privileged enough to have built wealth, what do you do with it? What's important to you? What do you want to leave in the world? And especially for those of us who don't plan to have children, not only is that a lot of money freed up on the day-to-day, I look at the—
Pause. Okay. First, just because you don't have kids does not mean you have money. Most people who do not have kids because they do not have money. So that is a very upper middle class belief system. Most of us who choose not to have kids, a lot of us do it because we don't have the money to have kids. So there is no leftover money. Like this idea that like, oh my God, we have so much leftover money because we don't have childcare. No. So that is just, again, Chat said it perfectly. White people will say they're broke, but have a whole trust fund, savings account, suburban home. Well, they will inherit from their parents. Pisses me off. That's what I feel like Chelsea is confusing to me, because she'll say things like, I was broke, I grew up like without money. And then she'll say the most like upper middle class thing I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, are you sure? Because like, look, I grew up middle class. I'm not even going to try to pretend we grew up broke. We didn't. My dad made 6 figures with 10 kids. It was, we didn't have the money for a lot of stuff, but we had a pretty okay, like financial childhood. Okay. I didn't pay my parents' bills or anything like that. Right. And same thing now. I don't make even 6 figures, but we live on our income and we don't use our credit card. That is a privilege, okay? We live very minimally. Yes, it would be nice if we got to eat out more or do more things, but we can save up years to do that and they'll be fine. Which, by the way, plays a role in one of the things Chelsea's about to say in this video that made my partner and I absolutely like, oh, wait till we get to it, girl. Wait till we get to it. Because again, my life is very parallel to Chelsea's, but it's completely different. Like we have a lot in common, but it's completely different. And it's because I didn't grow up in the same financial bubble as her, or like the way she throws around numbers, like it's not a lot of money, is so interesting to me. We'll get to it. I won't spoil it.
Childcare costs that my friends pay here in the city, and I'm truly gobsmacked. It is often literally more than my mortgage here in the city. Not only does it free that up, it also frees up your future. Like I don't have children that I'm looking to like pass an estate down to, and obviously we could get into the estate tax and all of that. Suffice to say—
Okay, just an example, we're not having biological kids, but I have 8 nieces and nephews, and as far as I'm concerned, those are all my kids. So we're thinking about their college, we're thinking about medical care, we're thinking about if any of them are gay or trans, we're thinking about if any of them need to come live with us. As a couple, we're 100% planning a financial future. We're like, if those kids need a home, we make a home for them. So it's interesting that she says, see, I'm not an individualist in that sense. I'm a community collective kind of girly, which is why I expect Chelsea to be that. But Chelsea speaks like a conservative or like a liberal who's a capitalist. Because like you don't have nieces and nephews, you don't have any kids in your family. Didn't you just say your coworker's having a baby? Like, don't you guys have friends that are none of those babies? It's okay if none of those babies are going to be your responsibility. That's fine. But in some ways, like, do you not have a community you're thinking of at all? Nobody to retire, nobody, and not that you're obligated. Okay. It's just interesting that she wants to raise this money for strangers who are artists, but like, is your family good? And I'm going to assume yes. So that's in good faith. I would assume yes. So then I would assume, oh, so you're well off. Because then I'm going to assume that if nobody in your family is going to need anything from you, you must come from a very stable family. That's amazing. What a blessing to not have to worry about any of your family or friends needing help financially, right? So, okay, different lives, different bubbles, right? Okay, fine.
Once you are freed up from the day-to-day struggle of not having enough, the question then becomes, well, what do you do with the money that you have? And so for all of those reasons, it's very important for me to discuss these things. It's also important for me to highlight, as those of you who watch the channel know, we work with a very small number of partners that we use to help support this company, all products that we use and really vouch for personally, and without which it would not have been possible for me to make these huge financial moves, let alone to run the company. And
Chet said, I feel like if Chelsea was a legit leftist, she would have thought about turning her company into a co-op. and may explaining why. Yeah, that's interesting. Co-op versus a versus a nonprofit. Yeah, that's a good example. Well, I think she might be a liberal. If Chelsea just came out and said, guys, I am a straight up liberal, I'm a Democrat, then I'd be like, oh, no criticism. Well, I mean, criticism from a leftist perspective, but not hypocrisy criticism, right? Because right now, for a lot of the people in Chelsea's audience, they feel like she's being a hypocrite. And that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, oh, did we misunderstand you, or did you misbrand yourself? You know?
In the way that we do. So if you are interested in getting a good budgeting app, that is probably the first thing that completely transformed my relationship to money and got me out of my avoidance cycle. I highly recommend Monarch. I've used it before we started working together. I check it every day, multiple times a day. It is really good for just the day-to-day management of money, but it's also good for things like tracking your net worth, really allocating your savings and your goals and all of that. It's also very good if you live with other people or you have a partner and you want to split finances. It's just, to me, a perfect budgeting app. I was always on the hunt for a replacement for Mint once that went away because I was a big Mint user. Monarch was started by people who used to work at Mint. Cannot say enough good things. It is also, there are no ads, they don't sell your data to third parties. Like, it's also a very ethical app in my view. And if you use our link, you get a huge discount on your first year and you get to do a free trial with them. So use that. And also, a huge part of the wealth that we built that allowed us to make this purchase was made through investing in the stock market. I don't know if you've read, but there's been a couple good years in a row here that we greatly benefited from.
There are some leftist arguments that engaging in the stock market in any capacity is unethical. We have not engaged in the stock market yet. I don't know. I mean, I think about doing my Roth and stuff, but we're not financially in that position in that way. So we haven't done it yet. I also heard from some leftists that there are ways to engage in the stock market that supports like more ethically sourced companies or more ethical companies. There's this part here where, like, for some people, if they don't invest in the stock market, they won't have any retirement. And so from a no ethical consumption under capitalism perspective, it's hard to tell people not to invest in a market that might actually help them in their retirement, because like they're definitely not going to have any retirement otherwise. And that's true for us right now. Like, if we don't start investing, we probably are not going to have much of a retirement. But that's the other part of this conversation that's really hard. So Chelsea's always told her audience, like, you have to invest, you have to do stuff, which I can see why people don't. I can see why people do. This is something that needs to be deeply deconstructed, I think, about what is the best thing for a leftist to do when engaging in investments, right?
If you have been thinking about getting invested, want to do it in an easy kind of low lift way, are a little overwhelmed by the concept, I highly recommend Betterment. A lot of us here at TFT use it. It's a great investing app that you can just set up really quickly, literally in minutes, and just start getting invested in a really broad, diversified, safe way. None of that like crazy individual stock picking. Because investing in the market, especially long term, is going to be one of the absolute keys to building wealth. Now, obviously, my husband and I are quite invested in real estate as well between our apartment here.
Okay, and that's the other part too, right? Like, she's made the decision to invest in real estate, which from a leftist perspective is very contentious right now because, we're not very big fans of landlords, especially places like Spain have been complaining about tourism. Airbnbs, Croatia is struggling from the rental market. Like, they don't want a rental market here. You know what I mean? So when we talk about, having these conversations, there's layers to this. So I'm trying to bring it all up as we talk through this, but that's why some people can be upset as well.
New York City and now his home in France. But all of that is to say, those two things were absolutely key to me getting here on my financial journey and being able to do something like this. To get to, first and foremost, the nitty gritty of this house, how much it costs, why we own it, all of that. For context, I did already share about this on my personal Instagram about a month and a half ago. So a lot of you are probably already aware if you follow me there.
Also, a wealth signal is a pool. Like, the fact that her new house in France has a pool is a wealth signal as well. It's not like everybody has a house anywhere. And so if you have a house with a pool as well, it is a signal of wealth. So it feels, again, another thing that's tone deaf for the way she's branded herself only. I really think Chelsea somehow miscalculated her brand, and that's why people are upset. But it can be quickly fixed, right?
I also wrote a full newsletter breaking down all of the finances of this, which goes into a lot more detail than this video will. So that's also linked below. It's free. You can go give that a read if you want more kind of nitty gritty. But to give some context, so why France is kind of a first question. For those who don't know, I started speaking French quite young. And when I got out of community college and was looking for the university I was going to go to, I actually got accepted into many really good ones here in the US, but didn't get much in the way of financial aid. So my decision was to move to France so I could study there for basically the cost of community college, because I could do it in French and get a degree there. I moved over there. I was an au pair. I was also
Wait, didn't she say she didn't get a college degree? So did she not finish her schooling? Wait, did I misunderstand her earlier?
Tutor, and I was going to school all at once. And that is where I met my now husband. So I have been with my husband for 15 years. And we have lived in the US in New York City primarily for the past 13 years. So we spent the first 2 years of our relationship over there and then moved here. Well, almost 13 years. It'll be 13 years at the end of this year. So let's say first 2.5 years we were over there. Either way, so I have been with my husband again for 15 years. We've been married for almost 8 years. So I am a French citizen. I think I've mentioned that before in other videos, but I became a French citizen this year as well. But even prior to being a French citizen, we have spent really significant portions of every year in France. Obviously, his whole family is there. A huge amount of our friends are there. We just have a lot of personal ties to France. And one of the many, many reasons why we knew it was not the right decision for us to have children was because we wanted that freedom to be able to spend large periods of time in France. We've also gotten now into the habit of, like last year, I made several videos about this over on my TikTok, but we rented a large house for a month so that all of our friends could come visit and stay with us without having to worry about accommodations. Basically, having that part of our life in France, usually at least 3 to let's say 5 months each year in France, became a really important part of our life and how we were able to sort of give back a little bit to our friends and family by offering them these beautiful places to stay, and also really removing the burden from our family over there in terms of going to see them and spending significant time with them. So that has really been a defining part of my life and part of our budget. Up until this year, we were spending somewhere between like $20,000 and $30,000 a year on the France of it all. So although we are now spending more because of this home that we own, it is not a jump from zero to what we are now paying. It was a jump from $20,000 to $30,000 a year between rentals and traveling around within the country and getting back and forth and all of that, and other incidentals, renting cars, shuttling.
Pause. $20,000 to $30,000 a year. So she and he, but like, do you see the framing of this story? Like, for context, I live in Croatia, Dobar dan, and I like living here. Okay, I like it a lot. I'm immigrating here. I'm going through the immigration process. I'm learning the language. I'm blah 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 blah. I can't afford to go home to visit my family. It's not in the budget, right? I also don't want to risk Trump's administration, but like, it's not in the budget to go home, right? So the fact is, like, I don't know why she's not understanding why this feels so tone deaf to people to say like, oh my God, for 5 or 4 months out of the year, whatever, we live in France. It costs like $20,000 to $30,000. $20,000 to $30,000 is some people's salaries. And so she's sitting here not understanding why it comes off so weird for a quote liberal or leftist channel to kind of brag about it. And I'm not saying like, I know people are like, oh, you guys are bitter and that's why. It's not that. Nobody's telling her not to live her life. It's the fact that she's sharing it and she's acting like this isn't the craziest shit to come out of somebody's mouth. Even for an average American, they make incredible money, right? They're making over $300,000 as a household. Hello? And I'm assuming her husband, if her husband makes more than 100,000, they could be making 400. I don't know. But she makes 250 this year. Okay. He makes a full-time salary. They're probably making over 300,000 like conservatively. That is more than globally the average in any capacity. So the fact that she's telling this like a struggle story is the problem. She's telling this like we did it. It took 10 years of hard work to buy our second house. That's the story we're being told. And you know what? A lot of the comments love it because they're capitalists. They want this. They're like, yes, I want 2 houses. I want 3 houses. This is amazing. Like, and I get that too. So I also want to give her props for being so successful. And I also want to be able to raise an eyebrow and be like, so you're not a leftist. Because in which way does this coincide with like leftist perspective of community effort that doesn't center around you as a family needing to make $300,000? And then your second house, you're writing it off as a nonprofit? It just sounds confusing. So for her to say, oh, we were spending too much money, basically vacationing, because even saying like, oh, we spent half the year in one area and one half the year in the other is a privileged take. Most people, they can go 20 years without seeing their family because of finances or immigration paperwork. The fact that your husband and you have the ability to spend half the year in one country and half the year in another is very privileged. It's not just like a little privileged. It's like, it is beyond comprehension privileged. And so that's like what I'm just trying to get Chelsea to understand, because I know her feelings do get hurt, but I want her to understand, like, I don't think you know how privileged you are. And that's really hard. And I get it. It's hard for any of us to know how privileged we are. Sometimes we need a humbling. But girly, 20 to 30K. And then you're like, oh, I can't afford that. So we're going to buy $1 million house instead. She's like, oh, it costs so much money to vacation or to live. So let's buy $1 million house in France. It's kind of going to hurt people's feelings, you know? She got her feelings hurt, but like, how do you think other people feel that can't afford groceries? It's going to hurt people's feelings. You know what I mean?
Around like all of the things that we would have to do while in France. So that was already a significant part of our discussion.
And by the way, don't even get me started on the fact that she recently put out a video saying they're not going to do video essays anymore because it doesn't pay enough. But then brag that the channel makes 7 figures. So the channel makes $1 million a year. And also we're going to stop doing the video essays, which is the only reason we all love to support you. But you're going to stop doing it because it doesn't make enough money. Did you see that video she made about how they're going to stop doing video essays on the channel? Exactly. So which one is it? Are you guys rich as fuck or are you not making enough money? Because just a year ago, she was begging people to be patrons and members because they weren't making enough money. So which one is it? That's why it feels bad. Are you not rich or are you rich? Why are you doing rich people things but then begging people for money? It's confusing. And I feel like she keeps saying she's transparent, but then why am I so confused? Which one is it? You know? Okay, let's see.
Discretionary budget. We also, for context, like don't travel that much elsewhere. I don't know if any people watching this are from one country married to a person from another country, but when that is your case, often your travel really just amounts to going back and forth between the two countries that you're both from. And that's really our case. So we also comparatively don't have a very high sort of like vacation or other travel budget. That is really where our discretionary money has gone.
I mean, that's a choice. You made a choice. You didn't have to do that. You could have traveled other places. My partner and I, we travel where we want to go. If we travel, it's not in our budget exactly right now because, you know, we don't rich. But yeah, like I don't really like, oh, woe is me. I have to go visit family. Like, girl, if you want to go on vacation somewhere else, go on vacation somewhere else. Don't sit there and say we don't have the budget. You know what I'm saying? You know?
On for the past several years. I also want to give the context that our company, so the channel you're watching is called The Financial Diet. The Financial Diet is actually a company. We do more than just YouTube. We are entirely women owned and operated, 7 employees, plus we have our founders and partners. And we are lucky enough, we did for a while have an office that we went to about 2 days a week.
And I just want to say, because chat says I make a good amount of money, and I could also understand her perspective. It doesn't feel like a lot because it feels like it should be the norm, but it feels like she's lacking the awareness. It's not the norm. Like I'm nowhere as near rich, but I understand me just being comfortable is a privilege. Yeah, and I think, and you said that's unfortunate, but the truth, and I feel the same way. Like, we don't have to swipe a credit card, right? So the year changes for me year to year, and like I said, I feel like I make good money, and of course. At one point, it wasn't feeling like enough because I don't have a house. I don't have a savings. I don't have an investment in my retirement. I'm missing all of these things that I'm supposed to have at 37, that I was a late bloomer for finances. I just started a few years ago. So I'm obviously a late bloomer. And yet, what a privilege that I can still not use a credit card. Like the fact that I don't need a credit card tells me I'm privileged. Now, I know some people like a Dave Ramsey would say, oh, that's just because you're responsible. It's also because I'm privileged. Like I do make a lot of money for a high school graduate. And also I don't make as much money as people would expect me to make or think I would make or assume I'm making, right? And so it's one of those things again, where it's we try to live within our means. And then obviously there are layers to this. But yeah, I think I try to stay humble and that I still try to acknowledge that, Brittany, you can feel a little stressed. You don't even own a house. You don't have your retirement. Like it's okay to feel stressed about it. It's stressful, and also to feel reassured that it will work out. Cause I do believe that. I think we're responsible. I think it will work out. And I think we'll do what we can to make it work. But for someone in her position to make this video feel so weird because she's acting like again, it just feels like she's proving Dave Ramsey correct. And if we follow, and I do think if you follow Dave Ramsey's steps, you'll be fine. I think they're a little extreme, but I think like math is math. But I think like to a conservative capitalist, Chelsea is a winning example of capitalism. There's nothing about the way she's conducted herself that doesn't work within the capitalist framework. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm confused, because it feels like a lot of other people are not taking sponsorship deals or not working with certain companies or not doing certain things so all of this to say, money is money. And for some people, a lot is a little is a lot. And also the way you talk about it at the end of the day is what matters. And that's, she's just talking in a way that hurts people's feelings. And I think it's reasonable. And then from a obviously principled position, I would love for her to be more transparent about her whys. Like, why do you need the second house for real, for real? Like, why do you actually need it? And don't tell me it's to visit family, because no offense to your family, like, next. Now, if she said, because this is the only reason we would ever think about buying a second house if we ever had the money, and that is to house unhoused family members. Like, if I had a family member that was genuinely struggling to house themselves and it was a pattern, I would feel it justified to buy a second house they could live in, or to buy a house that the siblings or family members that were struggling could live in. And I feel like that makes sense. And I'm still questioning it, but I feel like that makes sense. But that's not what she's doing, right? She's not buying a house for family. She's buying a house for her and her husband to have a place to stay and to have a nonprofit for artists, which is like fine. It just, does that make sense why it would be questionable to people? Like, oh, so you're an individualist. Like, you are a capitalist. Like, you're not, I think she thinks it sounds like a community building effort, but I don't know why it doesn't really come across that way to me. It just comes across like something. We'll get into it.
Pandemic, but we decided last year that we were just going to go fully remote because it worked better for everyone. We even have some employees who don't or didn't live in the New York City area, so it was just a little bit more convenient for everyone, and also it was just a really big expense that we didn't need. So now we rent our studio space for filming things like our podcast when we need to, but otherwise we all kind of work from wherever we want to. We also are on a 4-day work week for 6 years now, and we have 6 weeks PTO. So flexibility geographically and otherwise has always been a very important part of our work culture. We do a lot of content here about it on TFD, as you can see from this video we recently did about the return to office propaganda, which I personally am extremely angry about. And it's not just me, right? Like, I benefit hugely from it because I live a big part of each year in another country. But also, like, for example, we have multiple mothers, including mothers of multiple children on the team. And for them, having flexibility over where and when they work is of huge value, not just in terms of their daily schedules, but also in terms of having to pay less for childcare. That's also
the only reason I had an issue with that last video she made is because the lady who was making the advice was a capitalist, and Chelsea's saying she's not a capitalist, I guess. But if you want to network, you do have to network. That's why capitalism works the way that it works. It's why you have to do deals with bad people. And Chelsea's saying, look at this business I built. We don't have to do that. Yes, but the business you built is predicated on it being somewhat successful in like the video format and everything else. But like, what's going to happen when if your business fails? And hopefully that doesn't happen, obviously. But you can see why for people in the capitalist bubble, they're looking at the way you're running your business and thinking like, is this going to get all these people to retirement, these 7 people? And I hope so. Like, I'm rooting for you guys. I hope so. But then the other question is like, are you saying not to go to the office because you're guaranteeing them that network possibility? Because like, I know as a YouTuber, I lose a lot of money by not networking and by not collaborating. I lose a ton of money. And I make that decision because I don't have anyone depending on me. If I had an editor and I had other people that depended on me to make a living, I might have to make sacrifices, but that's why I don't do it. That's why I do everything myself, because I don't want to have to be responsible for people's salaries. So I also understand Chelsea's under a lot of pressure. I'm sure she's very focused on making it successful because she really is responsible for people's future. So, there's some like, I'm trying to see where she's coming from in that way too.
So something worth saying is that part of the reason that we have historically been able to dedicate this much of our budget toward the time that we spend in France is because we don't have.
Also, I'm very confused on why she keeps talking about the business and then her personal income. Are these things not separate? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why does she keep talking about the health of the channel and then her second home? What do those have to do with each other? Is this not a business? Like, it feels a little confusing to me why those two things are related. Do all your employees have a second business? Or a second house? Or do you just have the second house? And also, what does that mean? Like, I know she has multiple streams of income. She writes books and everything like that. But I'm a little confused with the way she's telling the story.
Costs associated with childcare. But all of that is to say, us being this sort of remote first company that operates in this way, it hugely benefits me, but it's also very beneficial for I mean, really everyone on the team, especially the moms on our team. And also shout out to, I don't know if she'll watch this, but one of our key team members is currently on her second maternity leave with us. So hi, Rachel, if you're watching this, I hope everything's going well and can't wait to see you when you get back. So we had known for a few years now that owning a home in France would be a goal for us because we were spending so much money on it already, living in and out of rentals. I have enormous beef with Airbnb like most of us do. Hotels, crashing with family, which is its own can of worms. Maybe it saves you money, but at what cost? So we knew that this was something that we really wanted to do. However, we are still primary residents of New York City. We are fiscal residents of the United States. My husband is a green card holder, so he is, on his track to citizenship, but not yet a citizen. So being in New York at least 6 months and a day, essentially per year, is still of huge importance to us. So we knew that if we were going to have a home, we wanted it to really serve a greater purpose than just being a place for us to live when we're there for the summer. Now, both because I would be canceled into the next dimension if I suddenly became a landlord, which I truly have no interest in doing. I'm not running an Airbnb. I will not ever do anything like that. But also because I have literally no desire to do that. I'm against it for a lot of personal and ethical reasons, but I also do not have any desire to be a landlord. I also do not have any desire to make money in that way. That is not how I'm trying to make money, is by charging people rent to stay in the homes that I live. We knew that we wanted it to be a certain kind of house, to be a larger home that could also serve kind of hospitality purposes, both because we often have people who come stay with us. We have a lot of friends and family.
Hold on. That landlord comment is so funny because I saw a comment on her chat that was like, what's wrong with being a landlord? Like, what the hell's wrong with being a landlord? And someone was like, oh, I don't think Chelsea thinks it's wrong to be a landlord. I just think Chelsea is, it's not for her because being a landlord is a lot of work. This comment says, hold on, I have it on my, I shared it on my Discord because we were all going back and forth on the comments people were leaving. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up on screen so you can see it because it's so funny. And I think like that's the point I'm trying to make is like, there's like a disconnect happening. So I think there's like this confusion is like, are you a capitalist or are you not? Okay, so there's this comment. It's just so funny. And it's like, what on earth is wrong with being a landlord? What's unethical about it? To rent your home as a single property owning landlord. F that. And then someone's like, well, I think she means being a landlord is not for her, which I can totally understand. I myself am a reluctant landlord, And it's like, I think there's like a disconnect between like, okay, Chelsea, what is your content? Like, what is your content? Because it's confusing to people, but I don't blame her. I just want to know. And I hope if Chelsea ever sees my content, she doesn't think like, man, this Brittany girl really hates my content. I love the financial diet. That's why I'm so sad at the confusion I have because I love finance shows. I just like, I'm so confused about what I'm supposed to be learning from this channel because I think it just really helps me to try to understand like where you're coming from. And there aren't a lot of leftist financial channels, and the ones that do exist, like they're run by men and I don't like them very much. And so like, yeah, you know what I mean? I would love to know why, I guess,
I mean, just in a single month last year, we hosted 26 people, including, families.
Okay, so then this is the thing that they do too, where they want to be the rich auntie, rich uncle. So that they're like, we spent all this money hosting family. Yeah, you're just doing rich people stuff in some sort of like pretend not rich people stuff. Like you are rich. It's not fuck you money. Like Chelsea does not make fuck you money, but you're like, you make a lot of money. So you're rich compared to the average salary, which my Discord just shared, average incomes for the area. Southern Europe, European nations, Italy and Spain generally have lower averages between 35 and 44,000. Yeah, Croatia, same thing. Like I do make significantly more than the average Croatian, and I do not take that for granted, which is why we participate in local protests or participate in local economy stuff. We, I have connections with the tax office. I'm going to register to vote if they let me vote when I'm a citizen. Like I'm living here, I'm immigrating, I'm learning the language. I'm trying to do all the things that is sort of like I'm not trying to do we live in the US part of the year and we live in France part of the year. Like, I just think that's so awkward. For the locals to say that like, oh, we bought a house that we're not going to live in half the years. Like, okay, I guess, and then you're putting artists in that house who come from where? So now the locals in that French town you put a house in, it's just going to be an Airbnb to them. To the locals, it is an Airbnb. because it's not a neighbor they know. It's not someone who's going to build community with them. It's just somebody who's going to be a new person when you're not there. That's why Airbnb is frustrating, because you're taking away a house to build community with. It's not just because the rental market sucks. You're taking away neighbors, school kids, someone who can help in an emergency. You do know what I'm saying? That's why people are upset with this, but okay.
All different kind of configurations. So we knew we wanted that kind of big family country house, but we also knew that we wanted it to serve a very specific purpose, which we will get into shortly, what the actual home is going to serve for. But first, for my nosy girls out there like myself, girls after my own heart, just to give you a quick rundown on the finances. So for context, we already own an apartment here in New York City where I'm currently filming. I did a whole video breaking down the finances of that, but we were very, very lucky to get our home at really just an unprecedented time in New York City real estate history, where you were both having really, really depressed home values. We, for context, purchased our home in New York City for about $750,000, which was drastically lower than it had been pre-COVID. Almost every other housing market in the country really exploded during COVID and went way up. Ours actually went way down here in New York City, especially in Manhattan. So we were able to really benefit from those lower costs. And we were also able to benefit from COVID era interest rates. Our interest rate is 2.8%. So we got that sort of double whammy that kept our housing cost extremely low. My mortgage here in New York City, which I pay every month myself, is $2,195, which, for context, if we were to rent this apartment as renters, it would probably be in like the $4,000 to $4,300 range.
Yeah,
so
that's significant.
Massively lucked out. We also brought a large down payment. I'm not going to derail this video with all of the finances of our New York City apartment. You can watch that at the link that I provided here. But suffice to say, we had very low housing costs comparatively, so we were able to kind of take on these larger costs for our second property. So for context, our home in France, which is in the south of France, it's in the Provence region, which is, if you've ever been, you know, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I'm actually just going to read off of my notes so that I don't get anything wrong here. But we purchased the home for 862,000 euros, which is significantly lower than asking, because, you know, we love a deal. And we brought a 262,000 euro down payment from our savings in France. That roughly translates to just shy of $1 million for the actual home cost, and then just
pause. So they had a $300,000 savings that they used as the down payment for a home that was $1 million. Their second home. I would love to celebrate this. It just feels so tone deaf. Well, their first home was a low 700 in New York. I understand when we have these conversations, they go, oh, but that is really low for that area. Pause. We know, but they also work remote, right? So they can work anywhere. So you chose to work. You know what I mean? This is like the people that say, oh, I can't live near my kids because my job takes me elsewhere when they're a YouTuber. You can live anywhere. You're a YouTuber. Like, again, when we have these conversations about where we choose to live, it's also a reflection of so much more. You know what I mean? So for them to like, I don't like the way over the years it's been like a struggle game. And this is the disadvantage of being well off. I mean, I've even had people tell me, like, Brittany, you make fuck you money. Girlie, I don't even make six figures. I do not make fuck you money. And also, if and ever we get to afford a house, probably in 10 years, it will be a very big deal, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, I understand that Chelsea, quote, earned this, but I'm saying, why are you telling us about it? Because you know it's going to hurt your audience's feelings. Like, unless your audience is capitalistic, and then it's going to be a celebration of girl bossing. Like, you know how she always talks shit on lean in and girl bossing? How does she not understand this is related? A second home in France? How does that not sound like girl bossing? A vacation every year or / living in the other part of the country for half the year? I'm saying from a leftist perspective, there's a lot to criticize here. From a non-leftist perspective, there's nothing but celebration. Because this is exactly what America is. This is the American dream. You did it. You are proof the American dream is real. Congratulations. That's all the people in their audience is trying to say is like, isn't this exactly everything that, you know, this is what Dave Ramsey would say, good job, Chelsea, you did it. Proud of you. This guy owns like 100 properties, $100 million worth of property. He would look at Chelsea and go like, love real estate. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying, okay, interesting. And again, congratulations on the house. I love that. Congratulations on you building your wealth. If that's what you want to do with your life, great. I have questions, but okay.
around $300,000 for the down payment. Our interest rate on the French home is just around 3%, and so our monthly total all-in cost is around $4,700 a month. So all in, our total home costs between New York and France are around $7,000 monthly, which...
Okay, so to be clear, because I want to make sure I understand this too, is she saying the mortgages between the two places are $7,000 or all of her bills combined? Or are all their bills combined like $10K a month? Do you know what I'm saying? Because just for the record, I do not make $7K a month, as an example. That's good money. That's crazy money.
Is a huge amount for some. It is also drastically less than many people pay in New York City just for their one mortgage or for their...
See, she's doing this thing where she's comparing herself to rich people and then going, we don't make a lot of money. Why are you comparing yourself to the 1%? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why are you comparing yourself to the 1%? If we all compared ourselves to billionaires, we'd all be poor. But if we compare ourselves to people who are our average, we're making average. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, of course, like that's why people are upset in the middle class for making, you know, average salaries and not being able to live off them when you could have before. That's why people are like, okay, yeah, Chet says what you pay in rent is supposed to be no more than 1/3 of your income. Exactly. So we know they make $300,000 a year. This is like when Ramith gets people calling into his channel and they're like, we're paycheck to paycheck, but we make $350K a year. And he's like, you do not make paycheck to paycheck. Stop saying that. People who make $300,000 a year do not make paycheck to paycheck. You're just bad with money. And at some point, yeah, you are just bad. I mean, you're kind of always bad with money. I'm bad with money, but you can't save yourself out of poverty. You can't save your way out of poverty. So at some point, you actually do have to make more money, which we understand. Okay, if you're living off 30K a year, it's basically impossible. At some point, for survivability, you do have to make more money, period. Or find a way to live off of disability or something, but you can't live off 30K a year. It's unless you live with family or have some help, or you live a very frugal life in places where that makes sense. But let's say you're in the US, 30K a year is struggle. Okay, that's struggle. And that's struggle that should be subsidized by the government, and there should be frameworks in place to help you get housing, right? But Chelsea isn't in that position. She's in the $300,000 a year bubble. So again, I don't know why Chelsea is getting so upset that people are upset about her bragging about a second house, but that's what she's doing. And that's why I'm saying, why do we need to know you about a second house? Oh, because you want us to know you have a nonprofit and you want people to apply for the nonprofit. So you know what I'm saying? Like there's a thing here. And if it's a nonprofit second house, you know what I'm saying? Okay, okay.
Their rent. So it's relative, but it is absolutely extremely privileged. And I'm outing myself here. I'm a member of the bourgeoisie.
That's not a funny joke. Like, is she making a joke? Because that's not funny. That's not funny, right? I don't get why that's funny.
It is absolutely extremely privileged, and I'm outing myself here. I'm a member of the bourgeoisie. What can I say? When the guillotines come out, I think I'll be in that line. It is what it is, but that's roughly the numbers we're talking about.
But that's on purpose. You did that on purpose. That's why people are confused. Why did you do that? Why did you become one of them? Why did you choose to do that? Why didn't you take that $1 million for that house you put in and pay 10 different people's college fund? You know what I mean? Like, why did you make that financial decision to only improve an already privileged family home? You and your partner are already privileged. And then you put more money into you and then called it for the community because you're funding artists' stay in France? Well, it's disrupting to the French economy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels very... So it's very individualistic, very capitalistic. Like, I don't understand how this is different from Dave Ramsey.
In terms of what I pay, so as I mentioned, I pay for 100% of our mortgage here in New York City. I also currently out-earn my husband. He is not currently working full-time, and I currently earn $108,000 salary from TFD, plus somewhere around $100 to, let's say, $150,000 a year from my books and from other freelance projects. So my take-home is close to the $250,000 mark when everything's all tallied up. But he has significant savings from his career. He has been at a company, he works in tech, and he's been through an IPO, and he's also worked in companies that have sold. So he has substantial savings. So he is able to...
Well, you guys had $300,000 to put down on your new house. So yeah. So even after the $300,000, is she saying they have substantial savings? You can see why this is making people upset. Like, I feel like it makes perfect sense that some people are like, girly, what is this video? Right now, let me just read you some of the comments. So you have some of the idea of what people were upset about, because I think it really like changes the conversation. Let me bring this up because she knew people were going to have a problem with this, but I really don't think she really understands why. And so let me pull this up for you. Let me just show it to you. These are saved comments that I shared with my Discord, so I don't have to scroll through her comment section to try to find them. This is the one that I think is really good. It says, "Hey, I'm happy for you. However, the feedback you're receiving is a reflection of the content you put out. You spend a lot of time criticizing wealthy people like yourself for achieving exactly the level of privilege you clearly have. You dictate how much money other wealthy people should be allowed to have and what luxuries are too ostentatious for a person to have. It's not a surprise that the mirror is being turned back on you. Congratulations. It's always amazing to see another woman accomplish a dream/goal." Exactly. I don't think any of us would have a problem with Chelsea's success through the bubbled lens she exists in if she wasn't always making content that contradicts this level of success, right? I think, to be honest with you, I think I started to notice it in the divorcee content she started making, where her audience was begging her for healthy relationship content. And she said, you can't learn anything from healthy people or healthy relationships. And I was like, girl, like, we don't need to watch women in their 50s get divorced every time. Like, I'm over it. You know what I mean? Can you please show how couples share money and are successful? It's like, in some ways, her content has like been a bitterness over couples who share money and makes me like look at her marriage like, are you guys not happy, dude? And then the other part of it is like, sometimes I think she wishes she struggled more. Like, if there's something psychologically happening here where like she wants to be rich, but she feels bad about it. And I'm saying, don't feel bad if you're rich, if you want to be rich. Just admit it's not a value of yours to feel a way about it. Do you know what I'm saying? So then this comment says, "Hey, I think the artist in residency idea is super cool and feels a little bit of a way of giving forward. However, I am generally weary of rich people using philanthropy as a way of amassing more wealth and power, when it should be something government/we, the people, should be doing by pooling resources. Also, why do it as a nonprofit? Are you going to be writing off the funds needed to maintain paying for your house? Is it another way of turning your home into an Airbnb without feeling guilty? I feel like more transparency might be warranted here." Absolutely agree. Next comment says, "Hey, it's not that I'm not happy for you. I am. It's just that we're going through an economic crisis and people are struggling more than ever to meet their basic needs. You might have every right to buy a second home, but making a video about it and giggling about the part of being a bourgeoisie feels out of touch. I mean, read the room." And then the people commenting were like, "If this is triggering for you, don't watch. Chelsea also advocates for volunteering, getting to know your neighborhood, and being an activist." Right. This is why it feels contradictory. Okay. Then someone said, "Hey, what a strange comment. This type of victim mentality is what keeps people in their financial crisis circumstances they're in." She started the video explaining where she started from to eventually get where she is ultimately now, including being able to provide her employees a 4-day work week, blah, blah, blah. "If you're unhappy with your own circumstances, take action by changing them." Very Dave Ramsey replies. Very Dave Ramsey replies. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. Then someone says, "Hey, I'm sorry, Chelsea, but I'm having trouble understanding you lately. Just for context, I am Spanish and I'm sick and tired of foreigners buying homes in a country with their foreign salaries. For the record, I understand that your husband is French and that you spend a lot of time in France. So I totally get that you wish and need, to some extent, to have a home there. So no problem with that. Okay. While I don't understand it necessarily what I don't understand is the necessity of posting a video about it, bringing up all the good and advantageous things and enhancing what is already a big problem in some European countries. Please avoid creating videos about this, as we don't need more people wanting to buy homes in Spain, France, or Italy after being encouraged by someone on the internet they admire." Yeah, I mean, look, I see that in Croatia as well. I tried to be very aware of that, because I do understand Croatians are really struggling. And so though I want to celebrate the fact that I live here and this country embraced me, I also want to make sure that that's why we keep up with what's happening, because I don't want to be those people. Even though my partner is Croatian and their parents are Croatian and their family is here and all of that stuff, I did not mean to come here to take advantage of the low costs, right? It was just the only country that embraced us. We couldn't afford the US, and the immigration process was way too scary for us as a couple. And so we feel grateful Croatia has embraced me. But I just want to say, like, we didn't have the privilege of picking America as an option for us. So we have the privilege of being embraced by Croatia. I mean, that is the privilege that a country did take us in. It just happened to be my partner's home country. And Yeah, when we think about buying a house, obviously we're not. There are options to buy $1 million homes here in Croatia. We cannot afford those homes, nor are we looking at those homes. We're mostly hoping just to buy like something like we live in now, which is an apartment. If we get that, that would be great. If we don't, okay. We also understand that we're renting from a Croatian who it is a rarity in of itself. Like finding a place to rent in Croatia was really hard because it's mostly a place where people own homes, which I love. So we're also lucky that we even found a place. So we're just trying to be grateful through this process. It's not like they have traditional apartment buildings like in the US. We are renting from a person who owns a home and they call it an apartment. Like a lot of Americans might be shocked by that, but like there are probably places in the US that feel like that's more typical, but like we're renting an apartment. That's a home. That's somebody's house. Because most people own condominiums or homes or things that are attached to their homes. Having a house that stands on its own with like a backyard and a pool, that's very rich people stuff. Even for Croatians, it's rich people stuff. So Chelsea having a standalone home in France with a pool, I don't know what it's like in France, but you know what I mean? Chad says, did your partner apply for a visa to the US? Just curious if you're willing to live in the US. We originally were going to live in the US, but when we went through the immigration process, realized it was way too scary and way too expensive and not worth the risk of my partner dealing with immigration through the US. And so we applied for Croatia. We also have a better relationship with the family in Croatia than we do with the family in the US. My family in the US is also all over the place. So I don't have like a select place where all my family is or something. And so for us, we don't have anything in the US. Do you know what I mean? Like I love the US in the sense that I'm from there and I love my family, but my family is also scattered and none of my family is the kind of family, like my partner and I are trying to do within reason what works for us as a family. But it sounds like Chelsea's partner probably has a family that all lives in one place. Even my partner's family doesn't live in one place. They're scattered. So we just moved to the place that makes sense for us as a family, but we don't come from the kind of families where they're all in one spot. So we kind of have to make decisions as a unit. So even though it's an individual decision, as a married couple, we always keep the kids in mind. So the only people we are financially ever willing to be responsible for are struggling family members and children. Otherwise, like we all have to pull our own weight to help each other. And the idea is like my family is very helpful. If I need money, I can call my sister. If I need money, somebody has something somewhere, I'll pay them back. But the idea is like we're all trying to do good by each other to not do that. We all are middle class, but none of us are rich. None of us make $300,000 a year. Okay, all of us make between 50 or 30, I guess, and 100,000. Okay, 150,000. But nobody makes 300,000 a year in the family. So we're stable, but we're not, you know what I'm saying? So we're trying to be there for a family, but people responded to that comment from this person in Spain and said, hey, her family, like her husband's French, so technically they're not foreigners. But again, so Chelsea is buying a house in a neighborhood in which they will not be neighbors. They will be temporary neighbors for part of the time. And the other part of the time, there will be strangers coming in and out of the neighborhood. Yes. Because if your nonprofit house is being used by sponsored strangers, then these French people in this French neighborhood will have strangers in the neighborhood, which basically works as an Airbnb. Okay. Like we know some of our neighbors in the building, but some of the apartments I'm pretty sure are Airbnbs because it's a new family like all of the time. And I'm like, who are these people? So when we see them, we go, hi, how are you? We don't know them because it's a new family all the time. No matter what you call that, that's an Airbnb. So it doesn't matter what Chelsea calls it. From the neighbor's perspective, it will be an Airbnb, even if it's not an Airbnb. Because the functionality of it will be strangers who switch up every so often, right? Okay. This is Chelsea's comment. And then what on earth is wrong with being a landlord? Okay, so you already saw that. Okay, so just to put people's perspective, because again, this isn't another video to make Chelsea feel bad. This is a video to explain all the different bubbles and how they overlap and why there's some problems, why she's receiving any issue or pushback, right? Okay, Chelsea, chat says, what's a nonprofit house? It means they bought a second house that is their house, but they're running it as a nonprofit, which she'll explain, I think, in this video. She will definitely explain it, to bring artists in so they can have a place to do art.
offer more for the down payments, and then I take on the monthly payments, and that's just kind of how it's worked between us. I am not currently paying all 12 months of our mortgage in France. I'm currently at about 9 months that I can afford to pay for, but my goal is to get to a place where I can cover 100.
Also, her and her husband have separate finances, which is a whole other layer to this that I find interesting. So Chelsea doesn't identify as somebody who has the same money as her husband. She identifies as somebody who makes money on her own. That's why she keeps saying, oh, I'm paying for this rent. Versus my partner and I, everything goes into the pool and gets dividended out. Like, we don't have separate, there's no my money, your money. It's all the money. The household makes this much. Here's how much we're putting towards savings. Here's how much we're putting towards bills. Here's how much we're putting towards our future. Our marriage works a little bit differently like that, you know?
% of it. But so yeah,
which is fine. Like, I'm not saying she's wrong for that. I'm just saying that's why she's talking that way.
$7,000 a month of our costs are going into homes now, which again, it's all relative, but it is quite a lot of money. Now, the real question then becomes, so if we live in this house now, generally we're saying May to September.
The only way it's relative is if you compare yourself to like the 1%. Otherwise, it's not, oh, it's all relative. It's at that point, you're just, do you know what I'm saying? I don't know why she says
when we're in the home that roughly corresponds with the time that we were already spending in France as renters. What do we do with our home in New York when we're gone, and what do we do with the home in France when we're gone? So our home in New York, what we have historically done is we just give it to friends and family who are coming through New York. For example, for June and July, one of my dear friends, her daughter is coming to New York to do an internship, and so she's going to live here, so she doesn't have to pay for housing costs. We also have a lot of friends who come and visit family who are in the New York City area, and we leave them our home. But so basically we just leave it to people. We have a friend who's moving and needs a place to live between their old lease ending and their new lease starting. They're going to take it over for a few weeks. But generally we just leave it as a place for people who need a place in New York City to use. And that's kind of historically how it's been done. We may change that in the future and do something a little bit more formal with it, like we are doing with the home in France, but we'll kind of see. As to the house in France, why we knew that we wanted to look for a very specific type of property that checked a lot of boxes. I'm not going to get too in depth about all of the boxes it checked because I don't want to accidentally dox myself, but we knew we really wanted it to function as a working...
I mean, with peace and love, girly, you put a picture on the internet, it's over. That's why I was so shocked she shared a picture of the home. Why would you, like, it's over, doxed. Do you know what I mean? Like, that geolocator, like, I was so shocked she shared a picture of her home. And then what's worse is she opened it up for applications to the internet. If her nonprofit is taking applications from the internet, how are you vetting those people for mental health, for stalker issues, for, you know what I'm saying? Are you vetting the people you're letting stay in your home? And what if one of them commits a crime while they're staying in your home? And then she said she's opening it up to everybody, so people who are not even in France. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much. What an interesting choice of how to spend your money, you know?
Artist's residency as an artist studio. So one of the features that this home has is a fully functioning artist workshop that used to be owned by a local sculptor and is really kind of well set up for people to work on artistic projects of really all scales. Because what this home in France will serve as for the September to May season when we're not there is a grant-based artist residency for women. Now that's going to be a very flexible term, right? So that can mean someone who's working on a novel, it can be a sculptor, it can be a painter. We're going to keep a very sort of open mind about the artistic projects that these women can be working on. But we really just want to create a space where women can come, enjoy the home, enjoy the studio, work on their projects, and not have to worry about money. So in addition to being able to live there for free, they will also be receiving a monthly stipend. Initially, I will be covering all of these costs once we have sort of created a proof of concept for the residency, which will be registered as a nonprofit here in New York City and therefore governed with, a board and all of the other things that nonprofits.
Wait, here in New York City. So the house in France will be a nonprofit in New York City? Is that what that is?
Profits are required to be compliant, and of course all of the finances of that will be publicly available as a result. Once we've had a proof of concept, I likely will fundraise to some extent to help essentially support more women. We're going to
Okay, so now they're going to fundraise for her second house in France because it's a nonprofit.
Start with one woman at a time, probably for a 6-week period. We haven't finalized yet, but one woman at a time coming to work on her.
Like, hear me out, Chelsea. Instead of buying a second house for $1 million in France, hear me out. What if you raised money through a nonprofit and just sent it to the people so they could pay their rent while living at home and doing art? You know what I mean? I feel like she's playing right in our faces. I feel like I'm being played right in my face. Like, Why do you need a second home in France to fund people's art projects?
Project, but it's a large home. So the goal is to have seasons where we have, let's say, 4 women at a time who are not only working on their projects, but also living together and all receiving their stipends as well. Also, as a means for funding this, we will be having a few paid retreats in the summer season. When I am there, people will be staying off site, but a lot of the actual sort of retreat content will happen in the home. Workshops, classes, things like that. We'll also be doing, art tours and wine tastings and, food trips and all of that. But I do plan to host retreats in the summer season that will be paid for small groups of people, probably 12 to 15 people at a time, that will help to support the overall initiatives of the home. But for the majority of the year, it will be a nonprofit artist's residency, which is very important for me for a few reasons. One, probably first and foremost, so I don't talk about this a ton, but my father is an artist. He's a career illustrator, and I'm gonna get emotional, but we're just gonna say it anyway. I know we've talked a lot about AI on the channel over the past few months, and it's a very hot topic, and I have extremely complex feelings about it that I'm not going to get into I'm not going to derail this conversation with it. You can watch my hour-long digression about this here if you're interested. The way that AI in particular is coming for art is just really, really, really sad to me. Even like my cousin is an artist. She illustrated my whole hosting book, and like I'm seeing my father, who's an artist, toward the latter part of his career, and seeing my cousin, who is an artist, toward the early part of her career, seeing how both of them, how AI is just making their lives harder every single day, and how much we are devaluing human creation, and how much we are divesting from that as a species is just incredibly demoralizing. Like, I feel so lucky to have been able to grow up in an artistic environment and to be an artist myself, and AI is coming just as much for the written word. The CEO of Barnes & Noble the other day was literally talking about how he's going to stock AI books on his shelf, and I was like, cool. Wasn't planning to have a good day today, but now I for sure won't. So being able to create a space for people to work on art for art's sake and to not have to worry about money is just really important to me. I know that it is not a solution that will scale forever, but I do think that it is a little thing that I can do.
Yeah, I love the concept. I just don't know why it has to be in a house in France that you call your second house. That's why I say, like, is it a work thing or is it your private house thing? That's why I'm confused. Like, I don't know why you couldn't just fund people's Patreon and give everybody $50K. I don't know why you couldn't drop in on artists you really love. Like she got this channel got funded by Hank and John Green at like a $5,000 donation to help start this channel, which I love. That's so beautiful. Why don't you go and do that? I think because she kind of wants to be a main character. I think it has to be about Chelsea's glory. I do. I think this is an ego thing. I think there's just so much ego behind this. Like, it has to be. And also she's trying to get away with buying a house for herself and her husband and calling it a charity. I do. I think there's something really fucking weird about this decision. Like, again, only from a leftist perspective. Pause. From a capitalist perspective, this is genius. So I just want to make that clear. From a capitalist perspective, she's doing everything correctly. Genius. Love it. Wow. From a leftist perspective, what are you doing? That's why I say, oh, you're a capitalist. Because I feel like I've misunderstood Chelsea's content this whole time. I thought she was an anti-capitalist. But now I'm realizing, like, oh, you're a capitalist. And in that case, good job. But from an anti-capitalist perspective, pourquoi? This isn't good. Okay? This isn't great. And that's it. So I just want to make it clear. I got to say it time and time again. I am not criticizing her from a capitalist perspective. I'm confused from a leftist perspective. Right?
That, is just a little piece of the solution. And the culture of being a patron of the arts, I think, used to be much more present throughout culture and throughout society, and something that we really looked toward people who were privileged enough to have built wealth to really reinvest that in all different things. And of course, other philanthropic efforts are also very important to me, and we talked about them a lot on this channel.
Which is why people are upset with rich people like Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is a billionaire who utilized, quote, charity and philanthropy to like convince people he was a good person, but he's not. So yeah, like I also raise an eyebrow at rich people who are like, but I give to charity. Look how much I donate.
With regards to charitable giving and volunteering and things like that, all of that is still important, but I also really believe in the profound value of being a patron of the arts. So having that residency, I think, is in a small way a little middle finger toward the way that we are devaluing art. And again, this will be for all artistic creation. It is not just limited to painters or sculptors or what have you, but I want to make sure that there's some emphasis on the visual arts, also because the area where this workshop is located is in a town with an extremely rich artistic history. Van Gogh lived there and painted some of his masterworks there. And
again, girly, you're doxing yourself. Like, what's she worried about being? You just told us Van Gogh lived there. You know what I'm saying? Why are you doxing yourself and then being like, oh, so I don't dox myself? You just did. Again. And not that I don't think listen, I don't know. I feel like she's very confused about how everything. I'm not saying listen, I know my tonality sounds so judgmental. I'm really not. I'm confused. I'm not judging. I'm confused. I'm not judging Chelsea as a person. I'm judging her actions, not her personhood. I'm not judging Chelsea. I don't think she's a bad person. I'm concerned about the actions being taken. And I'm just like so confused by this trajectory. I'm so confused by this decision, you know?
And, you know, it is harder and harder for young artists to find space to work, space to show their art. You know, one of the things I really look forward to doing in the summer is hosting, you know, shows for artists and having them come bring their work and hosting free events for them and, you know, doing everything I can to help support the culture of artistic creation with no cost associated, and really provide that space for the town as well as for, you know, all of the people that, you know,
for the town
and some that don't. And we'll just find out about this elsewhere. So doing this is, yes, it is an investment in the home that we will live in for part of the year and have our friends and family visit with us for part of the year. Sure. And it's, you know, money that is now being invested in real estate that otherwise was just being spent on rentals every year. As I said, it was a very substantial amount of money that we were already spending. But it is also an investment in really what I want the second half of my life to look like, especially coming like, oh, I'm gonna get so emotional. But if you come from not a lot financially and you never really thought, I mean, especially like not having a college degree and all of these things, like I never ever dreamed that having these things would be possible for me. Like I feel that I've gotten so lucky with everything in my life, but especially with this company. And like, I say it all the time, but I really want to repeat it. The Financial Diet, which is now a company that like employs 7 women and tons of other contractors and has built this beautiful life. And we have this 4-day work week and we have this 6 weeks PTO and all these other things that I'm so, and you know, our benefits and everything else. Like I'm so proud and happy for what we've been able to do, but none of that would have happened if John and Hank Green didn't give us a $5,000 little check grant to start the company when it wasn't a company. And you know, my co-founder Lauren and I, who's going to come visit the house this summer, like we talk about that all the time. This company makes like 7 figures a year and it all exists and it's all possible because of, you know, people who had been lucky and successful investing in us. And, you know, I think about for the second half of my life, like, of course, I'm extremely passionate about what we do here, especially because this channel has become so much more political over the years and so much more, you know, mission driven in terms of not just the way finances are, but how we want our economy to be. I have so much privilege being a dual citizen of France and the US, you know, even just for something as simple as like, if I didn't have insurance, I could go back there and get treated medically for free. And I want so badly for us to be working within a better system here in the US, and we can obviously afford it. It's just a question of how we allocate it. And so I am very proud of the work that we do here and the way that we operate as a company. And I am so honored and humbled to work with the women that I work with every day.
Bro, even that, not to be nitpicky, but like even that whole like, I'm so privileged I could just fly to France to get healthcare if I needed to. I'm like, why are you saying it like that? You know what I mean? I get it. Medical tourism is a thing. People go to different countries all the time because they can't afford it. It's true. It's cheaper to literally fly to Croatia and get your dental done here than to get it done in the US. And also, like, it just feels very like, we don't need to know this, you know? This is giving CEO speech now. She literally is such a CEO. It's incredible. Girl boss, lean in, all of it. Chad said she's falling into the socialite lifestyle trap. That's exactly what's happening. Which in my 20s, I would have celebrated. But I'm an anti-capitalist now, so now I think it's all bullshit. But yes, she is Sex in the City, going up the socialite, whatever. She is trying to rub the elbows with the right people. I get it. In my 20s, I would have just like, you know, but I'm just like, I'm 37 now. I'm the same age. We're the same age, you know, and I'm just like, you know, as a family, we're basically thinking, okay, if we ever make enough money, what do we do with the excess? And for us, it's maybe we're just different, and I'm not there yet, but we're not thinking about even the thing she's setting up is for the bougie rich. It is for the rich. You know what I mean? Like an individual coming to your house to do art, retreats of 12 to 15 people. Yeah. That's like, and again, if the house wasn't used for her family or herself, it'd play a little different, but it's not. And that's why I'm saying like, so which one is it? Is it a house for your family? Is it a personal house? Or is it an art house? If it was just an art house or just a retreat in which she was making none of the money and not pocketing any of it, that'd be different. But don't act like you're not about to benefit the fuck out of this quote nonprofit. This is a capitalist trick that capitalists use. This is literally what capitalists do. They buy property, claim it's a nonprofit, and then utilize it for their vacation home. They go on vacation with their friends and write it off for work. Like I'm not saying, again, it's all dependent on the bubble you're in, 100%. And I'm not even that mad about it when we're talking about billionaires compared to billionaires. Like, I'm not really that mad about it. But it is a question. There are plenty of things you can write off for work that are well within your business. Like, you're right. Absolutely. But, if you buy yourself a new Ferrari, writing it off for work is kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Like, but they do. YouTubers do it all the time, by the way. A lot of YouTubers will buy brand new cars and write it off for work. It's a work expense, which technically is true through capitalism. You can find a way to write it off if you use it for work. You got to make sure it's not your personal car. So, okay, that's my question. You can get in trouble and audited by the government if you use your personal car and call it a work car. You can get in trouble. Most people don't, because most people are doing it. But it's just the way that Chelsea is framing it. And look, we can have conversations about, is that good? Should you fuck over the government? Fuck the people, who's it fucking over really? That's a whole conversation. But it is interesting that she is not hearing why it's weird. That, we bought a second house. Also, we're going to write it off. And I'm like, and then she's like, it will come out of my pocket. So she's not even saying our pocket as a family. She's acting like she bought a house separate from her marriage. There's like 3 layers here. That's what it is. It's too confusing of a story. So did you and your husband buy a house? And she's like, well, I bought a house. I was like, so you bought a house. And she's like, well, he paid for the down payment. So you bought a house. And she's like, well, I'll be paying for this house until the government agrees it's a nonprofit. So you are seeking it a nonprofit. It's just a confusing story. And maybe I'm too poor to understand it, except I'm not, because I've read all these finance books. I know exactly what this is. That's what I mean. I've read hundreds of finance books. I watch all the finance people. This is exactly what a lot of them are doing because of capitalism. How is this any different from what they're doing? I don't get it. And yeah, like Chet said, why wasn't it a co-op? Or why wasn't it more community focused? Or why didn't it take into consideration, like even my Discord said, from what I've learned and heard from people, their main issues with owning homes in foreign countries and even white people moving into low income areas is that it can drive up the cost of living if the people don't participate in the local economy. Exactly. That's exactly the problem. That's why one of the things we're doing as a family is trying to buy as local as possible, as often as possible, because it's so hard to get away from fast fashion, all these things that we're trying so hard. But one of the things we try to do is always buy local. Even if we're tempted to buy from somewhere else, we do our absolute best. We're not perfect, but like 99.9% of the stuff we buy is local. And this includes, to the best of our ability, not buying online and making sure we buy from the local stores in town. So even if we get it delivered, it's locally delivered and we give a tip. So these are small little ways that we're doing to mitigate our impact. But this doesn't sound like, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, okay, I'll keep pressing play, but just some of the concerns people had.
Like, I know that it gives cult when people are like, we're a family here, but like many of the women at our company, like we've worked together for a decade plus. One of our, as I mentioned,
I believe that. I bet they love each other. Like, I bet they're very connected,
on her second maternity leave with us, and she lives right by me, so I just got to meet her new daughter, and I just I'm so grateful for all of that. But I'm so aware that all of this good fortune is because someone who had the means invested in us in a small way, sure, but also in a way that completely changed how we thought about what was possible. And so I think that in doing this, in creating this residency, like I want to give that to so many other women throughout the years and have them say, maybe I can do this full time, or even if they don't, like to just have 6 or 8 weeks or whatever to just focus on their work, on their creative work, and really enjoy it and just do art for art's sake. The other side of the coin is it's not just that AI is coming for everything and making it so much harder to make a living as an artist. It's also the fact that we live, especially on social media, in an environment that absolutely crushes creative potential because it makes everything into metrics and a performance and views and clicks and all of these things.
Did you literally just say you're no longer making video essays because it doesn't pay enough, even though you just bragged about the company making $1 million and you buying a second house? Chelsea, make it make sense. Which one is it? Are you here to support creatives? Are you doing it for the love of the game? Or are you only doing it if it makes money? Why would you stop doing your video essays, which is the best part of Financial Diet? Because it doesn't make money. If you make all this money, isn't the point of making all this money so you can make the content that doesn't have to make money? You know what I'm saying? Make it make sense.
and monetization, and you start to obsess over, you know, how something is received to the point that you forget about the joy of creating it. I say all of this to say, like, I do hope one day that, like, you know, after TFD is retired or passed on to someone else, which is my ideal scenario, someone young who's also figuring it out financially and at a different place in their life. I really just want to create this space and spend more and more of my time working on it and investing in it from a nonprofit perspective so that more and more of those little seeds can be planted. So financially, as I said, it is certainly a luxury and something that we are heavily investing in compared to our overall finances. It is definitely, I think, a financial advisor. I mean, when we talked to our financial advisor about it, it was like, Mama, you sure? Like, you guys are going to be heavily invested in real estate compared to everything else. But I don't know. I believe in we got very lucky with our home in New York, getting such a great price on it and such a great interest rate. And we have made the choice that we don't want children of our own, which frees up a lot financially, but also logistically, and means that we can do something like this. And I really, really just want to focus on what a life that is about passing on the gift of creativity and the space to do it as much as possible. I really want to focus on that. And especially in our Nepo baby era, where it feels like the only people who ever have the freedom to try anything or to make a mistake or to have fun are people who come from great wealth. It's a complete side note, but I saw a video on TikTok, or no, on Instagram Reels, because I'm like on a break from TikTok right now, the other day about what was it called? Like the wealthy gays. This was a French video, so I don't remember exactly what they called it, but basically they're like, so much of our media, like especially film and television, is automatically through an upper middle class or above perspective, because no one who comes from less is ever telling stories. And so often the only stories you get about people who aren't upper middle class or above are tragedies or are struggle stories. And it's like people from all socioeconomic brackets have all kinds of experiences and lives and stories to tell. They also fall in love and have fun and cry and go to work and do all these other things, but we never ever hear their stories because they don't have the space to tell them. So also creating that space is really, really important to me. And, you know, I don't know.
I don't understand why she doesn't understand that she's coming across as a Nepo baby. I know she's not a Nepo baby, but whatever the other word is for Nepo baby, but this, like, the problem with Nepo babies isn't that they were born rich. The problem with Nepo babies is they don't understand how much of an advantage that gives them, and then they act like they don't understand. It's like you forgot what it was like to be poor. And by the way, it is very easy to remember what it's like to be poor, for the record. It is very easy, especially in a world where, like, when you keep making more and it never feels like enough, it's very frustrating. But I think she has forgotten what it's like to struggle. And so because of that, that's why I didn't like her book, which was like host at any cost or host at any budget, but the budget started at rich people prices. Like, girly, that's what I'm saying. Like, for those of us who even make between 50 and 80K, hosting for friends and family, it needs to be budgeted. It's not a joke. It's a very big deal. And I don't know if she's understanding that. Like, people don't have the reason people aren't, remember how she called autistic people and ADHD people like socially inept, because I'm paraphrasing, because they were like, hey, this is really hard for us. And she's like, you have to get out of the house. And we're like, okay. And again, I say this as somebody who's like very established. That's why I try to, because I am so privileged, my community is established, I have a social life, I have all these things. I try to take into consideration like how I was able to do this, and I try to give people those tools, but it is very hard. It is very hard. And again, see, she wants to be celebrated. Like, I did it, but like, what am I celebrating? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we celebrating? Is my question. Lizzie Chet says, is she going to publish the art on her channel or just give the space? Like I'm sure posting these artists' work as an investment would be good. Sell it to her audience, like make the art ads then. Taking time off work is a privilege. Flying out to France, even accommodations are covered and stipend provided is a privilege. I don't think she's going to help the people she wants to. Exactly. Is she going to be funding like, and then she has to check, there's so much at play here, but like, exactly. I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And then she called them ableist for calling her out. She did. She said, that's ableist of you to think you can't be successful because you're neurodivergent, because she's ADHD. And I'm just like, really, listen, okay? I wish she had framed it as, I'm going to pay for people to do these retreats, or I fund people's ability to do these things, rather than we bought a second house and I'm also going to give it to people like partial. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Chad, you're making me laugh. You know? I don't know. Yeah, it just feels very disconnected.
Know if anyone's making it to the end of this video, to be perfectly honest. Maybe they'll just yell at me in the comments for, you know, being a rich bitch, to which I say, guilty as charged. But
oh my God, can you, girl, I need a cigarette.
And, you know, I don't know if anyone's making it to the end of this video, to be perfectly honest. Maybe they'll just yell at me in the comments for, you know, being a rich bitch, to which I say, guilty as charged. But I do.
Whoa. Okay, so I think you agree, right? She's a capitalist, she's a liberal, she's a Democrat. You cannot say you're a leftist and have this position. You can't. So maybe it's my fault. I will take responsibility of thinking this whole time that Chelsea Fagan was a leftist because I thought that's what her brand was. But my bad. She is absolutely in feminism. She's absolutely get rich. She's actually Samantha Jones, which, listen, in my 20s, I also wanted to be Samantha Jones, but I'm a leftist now, so can't be Samantha Jones. So you know what I mean? More power to you. I will try to watch her content with that in mind. I will stop watching the content thinking that they're leftists. And I will just say, okay, I am learning from a capitalist liberal about finances. Once again, they all are. I would love a real fucking leftist to talk about economics because it would be so interesting. All the ones they always send to me, they're all capitalists in disguise. You know what I mean? Anyways.
I think that, you know, in the personal finance space in particular, there's so much focus on making money, growing your net worth, retiring, really all of this stuff. But I think for me, the existential question becomes, if you have the money, if you have the flexibility, if you have the time, what do you do with that wealth? Where does it go? Again, every good thing that's
your own private house in France that you're going to turn into a nonprofit so you can get tax exempt and / have fun girly retreats with your select group of friends or associates. Why is she pretending like she's fucking Mother Teresa over here, which by the way was not a good person?
Really ever happened in my life has been a result of someone taking a chance on me or giving me a little startup cash or being willing to help me in some way. And so this will be a little space for that to happen and also for us to live for part of the year. So look out for on this channel. I'll be talking about the residency as it builds. I'm going through the process now of getting like all the nonprofit stuff set up, which is in and of itself a freaking masterclass. Like, good Lord, this is like involved. Luckily, one of my best friends, this is what she does. She's a nonprofit consultant who
a nonprofit consultant in her networking bubble. That's what I'm saying. Like, she doesn't even know the privilege is having all of these people who can even help her set this up. So your friend who's a nonprofit, what did she say?
The Lord, this is like involved. Luckily, one of my best friends, this is what she does. She's a nonprofit consultant who
is going to help you set up a nonprofit for your second home, your second family home. What?
Helps them, you know, set up and be compliant and run and operate and all of that. So she's helping me, which is a huge burden lifted because it's so hard to even know where to start. But so I'll be documenting a lot of that on my newsletter and also here on the channel. I will also, of course, be sharing once applications are open for the first residencies. As I said, we're going to start with one resident at a time, but then we'll grow to host multiple at a time. I will also be sharing about the events and retreats that we're doing here through the house and, you know, how all of that will work because those will be really fun as well. And yeah, overall, it is a very special time in my life. As we've discussed many times, including this video, I don't plan to have my own children. And
I don't know why that keeps coming up.
That means that I kind of have a blank slate in terms of...
Why do you keep bringing that up? I hate that she keeps bringing that up. It's not that you don't have kids, Chelsea. It's that you guys make a lot of money. It has nothing to do with you having kids or not having kids. It's that you guys make a shit ton of money. That's why you have money, because you make a lot of money. Her being like, oh my God, if we had kids, this whole thing would be different. Being double income, no kids is not the reason you have all this money. You have all this money because you're high earners. You make a lot of money. $250,000 this year, girly.
Where a lot of my life and time goes with my husband, and this feels in some ways just as big of a life decision as having kids. And please don't come for me. I know it's not as hard. I know I don't have to get up in the middle of the I don't have to get up in the middle of the night and breastfeed the house. Like, I get it. It's not as serious, but it does feel like a major
breastfeed the house is pretty funny.
Line in the sand, and one that I'm just so excited and I will be sharing with you. We will also continue to be doing all of the stuff that we do on this channel. My interviews with the women over 50, so many of them just getting good. I've been crying like every single day in the studio.
I think that's what's impacting Chelsea. She said in an interview that she stopped watching young people and is only watching women over 50 because she thinks they're erased by media. But that means you're not tuning into what young people are going through, so you sound fucking out of touch. You know what I mean? And a lot of those women you interview in their 50s are capitalists. A lot of the women she interviews, because I watch them, are capitalists, building businesses, having stores around, like, you're interviewing capitalists. So that's what I'm saying. Chelsea is so bubbled that she's forgetting that, like, hello, you're losing touch with the revolution. You're losing touch with the leftists. You're losing touch with the anti-capitalists. Like, you're losing touch. And like, that's why they're looking at you like, what is this content?
Because these are such amazing stories from these women and I love them. They've like become my friends. That podcast has changed my fucking life. Like, I didn't even care. I don't care if anyone watches it at this point. Like, it has been healing for me in ways that I can't even explain to you on this video. And we will be having all of our beloved guest voices come on the channel. We will be doing more economic coverage, more policy coverage leading up to the midterms. We're gonna get really locked the fuck in to flip everything with blue wave. Like, we're gonna be doing so much of that on the channel.
Yeah, she's a Dem, bro. She's a fucking little Dem, bro. She's a Democrat. She's a liberal. I'm just kidding. God bless her. Yeah, I get it. We've all gone through it, you know?
Be documenting this whole process. Sometimes you'll see me filming here. Sometimes you'll see me filming from France, as I've historically been doing all the time on this channel, but now it'll be in one place instead of a bunch of different rented Airbnbs that I'm so excited to never have to go to again. And yeah, I hope you will stick around for the journey. Thank you so much to John and Hank Green for that initial $5,000 seed money, without which none of this would have been possible. And yeah, I love you guys. I feel really lucky. I feel really excited. And
okay. Let's just check on updated comments since I haven't. Let's go to top comments. Let's see. Her comment, obviously, choosing to be everyone's rich auntie is a vibe. Dang, financially stable, wealthy, smart, in a stable relationship, child-free by choice, and a patron of the arts. You are life goals. Anyone complaining about this personal milestone being shared here after 10 years of building up and running this financial diet endeavor with lots of honesty about your money pitfalls, but now can't share your wins, really are telling on themselves. Happy and proud of you for such a beautiful dream. Listen, I don't want to come across as somebody who's like poo-pooing on her success. Again, only from a leftist perspective, it's bullshit. It's bullshit, and this is absolutely capitalism rebranded as charity. If she's a capitalist, then congratulations, girlie, you did it. You are the American dream. You're proof capitalism works. You did it, right? But don't come at me and tell me this is a leftist perspective, because it's not. Let's see, the replies are, yeah, we didn't scrape together enough. This reminds me of when I went to college and someone bought their own convertible Mustang. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Okay, imagine being mad at a financial advice content creator who has money. Is this not proof she knows what she's talking about? She liked that comment. Does she not get it? How tone deaf. This is what I'm saying. Listen, even as somebody like myself in the past, when people are like, Brittany, you're not a leftist, they were right. I hadn't deconstructed capitalism enough. I thought I was a leftist because I was progressive in every other perspective. But until you deconstruct capitalism, like truly, 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 and this is why even people look at Hassan with the left eyebrow raised, because like for an anti-capitalist, you shop like an overconsumer. Because in my mind, capitalism, anti-capitalism can't just be about structures of oppression. They have to be about individual choices, which I know sounds very anti-Marx, which it might be, but also that's so man of you to think that your personal choices don't impact your community. Your personal choices impact your community, and also like children are watching you. So they think you're a hypocrite. How can you sit there and say, I don't think capitalism is the goal, but look, I just bought a second home in France. Or look, I just bought an expensive car. Or look, I just bought this thing. Like, why are you buying these things? Again, like it's not, listen, you can be a rich socialist, but maybe we should question that as well. Because what does that even mean? And it's not about you making money. It's about what you do with the money. So again, I think we should ask questions about overconsumption. I think we should ask questions about the justification of, oh, I ethically earned this money, so I'm allowed to have this much. It's not about, listen, I know conservatives are afraid everyone's going to come take their money. But I'm asking, like, what are you doing with the money? Only because you are outspoken and making content. And you're talking about rich people being obnoxious. Like, why is Chelsea shitting on Nepo babies in the same video where she's talking about buying a second house? Just people, that's like the same thing. What is the difference? What is a Nepo baby except somebody who was lucky enough to be born into a rich family and then is given opportunities because of their networking connections? Like, how is that different? Like, materially, how is that really different? from the outsider's perspective. And again, there is something to be said about networking, and there is something to be said about being a good person, so much so that people want to help you out. And there is something to be said about good people will be ignored every day because they don't fit into the status quo with a script that is put in front of them. So they will also be neglected through white supremacy and all these other things like transphobia, homophobia. So again, and also know that Chelsea is saying specifically it's a retreat for women, which I'm assuming she's doing for partially safety because God knows, but also what kind of women? Who women? So I guess no queer non-binary people are coming, right? So I guess it's just for straight cis women or just cis women? And how do you ask people that in the application? Can you prove you're a woman? Like, do I have to take a blood test? You know what I mean? I have a lot of questions. You know what I mean? I have a lot of questions. So anyways, just like, it's whatever. I'm not a fan, but whatever. I'm glad the women are happy at this company. I'm glad people are happy, but I just, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. Well, I already read the comments to you that were the most concerned and like a little put off with this whole idea, but you've heard me complain now. I vented. I feel good about it. I'm not trying to complain. I really am not. Like really, I'm seriously, from a philosophical perspective, the world is hard. Patriarchy is so real, and women are absolutely getting the short end of the stick. And also, I do think a lot of women, white women especially, play a lot into lean in feminism while talking shit about it at the same time. And I just don't materially see the difference here. And maybe Chelsea could explain it in a follow-up video. What is different from all the feminists you've made fun of for being lean in capitalist CEOs and what you're doing now? What is the material difference from people who are struggling making $30K a year? Like, can you explain it to us like we're 5? Because I'm not getting how you just bragged about buying a second home for you and your husband and family. Oh, but don't worry, it's going to be a nonprofit. And don't worry, I have a friend who's going to help me make it a nonprofit. And don't worry, we're going to da-da-da-da-da. Like, make it just, explain it to me like I'm 5. Because maybe I'm not getting it. Maybe I'm not. Maybe this is on me. Maybe I've misunderstood the brand this whole time, which I'm open to. I'm very open to the fact that maybe I missed the brand. Maybe I was confused about it. But I'm glad I'm not alone, and I'm glad that a lot of you see my perspective, and I'm glad that people in her audience were like, I'm confused. Because I was like, yeah, I'm confused. And look how she preemptively, by the way, was defensive. Note to self, Chelsea knows she's doing something wrong because she preemptively got it defensive, made a joke about being bourgeoisie, and then said, yes, I'm a rich bitch, guilty. So you do know what you're doing. That's what I mean. Don't play right in my face. I feel like you already know. That's why you preemptively, before you read the comments, before you posted the video, put that in your edit. Because you're not living up to the same standard of scrutiny and criticism you've given others. It's okay. Humans are going to human. Chelsea's not a bad person, but it's very hard to be a good person, right? Don't I say that all the time? I'll say it again to end. It is very hard to be a good person. So all we can try to be is a little less bad every day. That's it. Okay? I don't think Chelsea is a bad human. I think she's just a human. And humans are going to human,